live from New York City. Johnny Torres, Dr. Hillary P. Wisdom on the call, kicking things off with a bang.
That's right, we're kicking things off huge with Trevor Lee versus the root of all evil, Charles Mason.
Trevor Lee, nearly a decade waiting in the wings to return here to House of Glory. Last seen in 2016, and you said it, waiting for him on the other side of the spectrum. The root of all evil, Charles Mason. Talk about a welcome back.
Well, Trevor Lee has been everywhere in the pro wrestling business, but he has never been in the ring with a creature like Charles Mason.
The root of all evil. It is not hyperbole when we talk about Charles Mason. His money has gotten him all the blood and all the pounds of flesh that a human could want. Charles Mason, back in his native habitat.
Charles Mason has everything material he wants in this world. The only thing he desires is the suffering of his victims. And the poorer they are, the better he likes it.
Mike Santana's got to have eyes on the back of his head, lest we forget Charles Mason, holder of that contract. We'll talk more on that.
Charles Mason wants the HOG World Heavyweight Championship so he can have a higher echelon of victims at his disposal. Mike Santana's got a target right on the back of his head, and Charles Mason can take that shot anytime he wants.
And that is the golden goose that's eluded Charles Mason throughout his House of Glory wrestling tenure. Crown Jewel Championship, check. Tag Team Championship, check. Cruiserweight, the first ever, in fact. But the World Heavyweight Championship will make him a Grand Slam champion here in House of Glory.
The pestiferous dunderheads here at the NYC Arena, as always, showing their distaste for Charles Mason, but that says more about them than it does about Charles Mason.
Independent Wrestling's Captain Caveman, gotta believe that he identifies with our New York NYC Arena faithful better than most.
And Trevor Lee is in better shape than I've ever seen him. He's put on some muscle, looks extremely dangerous.
No doubt about it. Ever since the return to the independent circuit, Trevor Lee, the momentum, the occasion not lost on Lee. Now the waist lock brings Mason to the mat. And we are off. For all of you tuned in at home on Triller TV Plus, thank you for spending your free time with us here at House of Glory, bringing the thunder with isolation. Mason in the ropes now.
Trevor Lee overpowering and somewhat out-wrestling Charles Mason in the early moments of this match. But Charles Mason is an extremely crafty competitor.
If you give him an inch, a fraction of an inch, he will take a mile. Mason now. He knows, as well as Lee does, they have to be careful with one another. They are both gifted combatants. And now, Mason looking to implement some of that catch can.
Right by the throat. Charles Mason just goozled Trevor Lee.
Now the snapmare. Mason drops on down. Trevor Lee showing off the agility, the scoop. Mason out the back door, rear naked choke.
Charles Mason showing just how dangerous and vicious he is, going for the kill any chance that he can get.
And there's the mind games on display from Mason. He let Lee know that he was so close to being choked out and just got drilled off his feet. Trevor Lee, the power behind those kicks.
Hey, he can't do that. Trevor Lee should not be pulling on Charles Mason's tie.
Yes, indeed, gotta believe. Utilizing the implements of clothing. Mason in a bad way now in the corner. Trevor Lee rains down the rights. Completes the 10.
Referee should have done something about that, letting things go here.
And now the tie utilized once again, the short tie clothesline as it were. And now the tie.
Referee Nick Shin admonishing Trevor Lee, but he should have been disqualified after that.
He's opened up the strikes now. The knife edge chop, and now the European uppercut. Forearm meets the jaw of the root of all evil.
As Charles Mason literally and figuratively on the ropes right now.
Mixing up the strikes is Trevor Lee. Well done. And this is a valuable momentum shifter of a bout.
But look at Charles Mason's face. He absorbed those heavy strikes from Trevor Lee and smiled.
Yes, indeed. We talk often about how he likes to dish out the punishment, but he doesn't mind taking it. Over the top rope to the outside. And now Trevor Lee.
Trevor Lee's got to capitalize.
Goes for the field goal kick. Oh, the miss to the face.
Oh, Charles Mason just threw Trevor Lee inside out onto his head on the hardest part of the ring, the apron.
Yes, indeed. You can see now Trevor Lee trying to shake those cobwebs out. And Mason knows he's bought himself some time, some room to breathe.
But going right after Trevor Lee now, choking Lee out with his jacket is Charles Mason.
Did not take kindly to that necktie being used against him, and now utilizing the clothing to his own benefit. And now Mason.
Trevor Lee is in serious jeopardy right now.
On the outside against the rails here at the NYC Arena.
And Charles Mason is in his happy place.
This is where the doctor is in, so to speak. You know a thing or two about that. Charles Mason, a different discipline of doctor, a doctor of violence.
Certainly knows a lot about anatomy and how to cause maximal punishment, maximal suffering by manipulating that anatomy, as we were seeing just there with the fish hook.
Yes, indeed. I don't believe Charles Mason gets into the moral side of the discussion too often.
Charles Mason has an understanding of morality that is beyond yours or anyone else's here's plebeian conception of it.
Fair, fair. He weighs in at a lot more money than I do. And now, Irish whip, pillar to post, front first. Jostling the rib cage of Trevor Lee, Charles Mason. Now he can't let the New York City Arena faithful get under his skin.
Full of obscenities as always, these degenerates.
Mason now, he wants to keep that momentum. He wants to be ringside for later on when Mike Santana defends the House of Glory World Heavyweight Championship against Konosuke Takeshita. And now the tooth chipper so far.
Look at this brutal beating that Charles Mason is administering to Trevor Lee right now.
Finds home on the high angle back suplex. What a combo there.
Just wait until later tonight when the Dark Star Idris Jackson unleashes some brutality on Carlos La Rata Ramirez.
Oh, lest we forget, I Quit action coming later on tonight. Hopefully, sir, you are not the one left in isolation.
There is no way that is happening.
If the Dark Star has his way, you are correct. But La Sombra, Carlos Ramirez, he's got a bone, now a whole skeleton to pick with you and the Dark Star.
Well, it's too bad it is absolutely inconceivable that the Dark Star will utter those two words tonight. I am perfectly safe.
We'll be lucky if there's still a New York City Arena standing after that I Quit match.
Well, right now, Trevor Lee fighting back against Charles Mason.
The word die not in the vocabulary of Trevor Lee. Mason with the boot up. Watch that hanging tree. Whoa!
Choking the life out of Trevor Lee. Thankfully for Lee, that move is illegal and Charles Mason must break before 5 or be disqualified. And he did break.
And now the double stomp, nobody home, bowled over by the clothesline. Trevor Lee picking up steam, the elbow connects flush. Over the top to the outside. And now, penalty kick. This time it's good.
Trevor Lee building that momentum, getting the NYC Arena behind him.
And the look on his face. He's feeling each day of the 9 years it's been since he was last in House of Glory. Welcome back, indeed. And now Charles Mason being sent back into the ring, and he's pointing to the heavens.
Trevor Lee taking too much time here. He can't give Charles Mason any kind of opening.
Perched up top now, Mason in the drop zone, the double stop, nobody home.
Just like I said, Mason out of the way, fighting out of that suplex.
Finds the half Nelson variant, Shining Wizard! Got it, all of it, cover that man! Wow.
Not enough to defeat the root of all evil.
We were saying before about Mason's penchant for absorbing violence as well as dishing it out. Still in it.
Charles Mason has resilience beyond that of anyone else in House of Glory or in the pro wrestling world.
No argument. Trevor Lee, he's looking to put that statement to the test. And now, power bomb. Mason, though, finds his way out.
Right to the throat.
Lee now trying to keep the momentum. This vertical suplex. Mason, sure-footed, lands on the apron. Rear naked choke from the apron.
The reign of terror, as Mason calls it. He applies it every chance he can get. STO with the choke there.
Uh-oh, Nick Shin better watch out. Gonna be on the receiving end of that. But now hold on, small package.
That was absolutely Nick Shin's fault that Lee got that opening there.
Close, no cigar, the double stop. And now Mason coming in hot. The low Meteora, knees to the jaw. Look to follow up, Death Valley Driver.
Could that be it? Ooh, Trevor Lee just barely gets the shoulder up.
Mason didn't have the energy left in the reserves to cover both shoulders, and it was that far shoulder of Trevor Lee that made the difference, and that's why, folks, your isolation opening contest rolls on here on Triller TV+.
Mason up first, he wants that fish hook again.
Freshly sharpened.
And to the chagrin of the NYC Arena.
He does it for their chagrin as much as he does it for the opponent. And now, fish hook, half Nelson suplex. Trevor Lee has other ideas.
Here's the choke again.
Oh, prawn hold, prawn hold! Not quite. Both warriors exhausted.
Both men have absorbed an enormous amount of punishment in this match.
And now the ripcord, bowled over. Trevor Lee answers with the lariat. And now the flying elbow, the cover!
Mason out again, somehow.
Sits out with the power bomb, high stack.
But still, the root of all evil remains in this contest. And Trevor Lee is wondering what he has to do in order to defeat Charles Mason.
New York City, the city of champions. And both Trevor Lee and Charles Mason are fighting like bona fide champions. And this is just our opening contest, Doctor.
Trevor Lee trying to summon something from the pestiferous Dunderheads here.
Hold on, Nick Shin dragged into harm's way. Mason now.
Brilliant move by Charles Mason.
The sleeper suplex, dumped him on his head.
Now the fish hook into the lariat.
Cover now. What? Oh, now right into the rear naked choke. No wasted motion. Body scissors hooked in. Trevor Lee has to make a business decision. Live to fight another day or tap right here, right now.
Will Trevor Lee succumb to the reign of terror?
Hold on. This may not be a willing end. Wait! Trevor Lee! How? Textbook rear naked choke implemented by Charles Mason, but Trevor Lee not saying die.
Mason has the leg hooked now. Back roll.
Shoulders down, nothing doing though. Mason off balance, but coming in hot. Passed by.
nasty kick to the head.
Mirko Cro Cop, eat your heart out. Trevor Lee coming in hot. Lands on the second. Electric chair position. Throat first goes Lee. Whoa! Rest in peace. Toast down pile driver.
Got style. And that's it.
Charles Mason victorious over Trevor Lee to kick off House of Glory's isolation here in New York City. What a battle, Doc.
The leader of the Cold-Blooded Killers victorious here tonight.
And there are many bouts that Charles Mason can finish while wearing the whole suit. This one required some semblance of disrobing, but the root of all evil got it done.
HOG. HOG. HOG.